It's very sad.
Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day today. Today we're going to be talking about a very cool LPVO from Swampfox Optics. But before we do that, I hope you guys are having a good Halloween. You guys enjoyed that intro, as I thought it would be a little fun to try something out. But if you want to help out the channel in any way, you can like, share, and subscribe, because of course that is free and very easy. It helps the channel out quite a bit. If you want to support me directly, you can either go to my Subscribe Star, and for as little as $2 a month, you can get additional content. You can get named in the beginning of my videos, and you get a bunch of free stuff in there as well. There's giveaways every month, and of course you don't have to do anything to enter other than just sign up for my Subscribe Star. On top of that, right now all of my plates for my company, Focus Shooting LLC, are actually 30% off on the website right now. So if you hop over there, you can get plates below cost. And the reason that we're doing that right now is for Black Friday, for one thing. So this is going to be the entire month of November. And on top of that, we also have a lot of new products coming in and new designs. I think we have 4 to 6 more plates, stands, hangers coming in. But we want to clear out some of our old stock, so we're putting everything at 30% down. So if you want some really cool steel targets that are at a really, really good price right now, I think the best possible on the market, go ahead and check the link in the description for that. And really quickly, for the YouTube censor watching this, this is a video just on optics. We're not really talking about firearms, so we're just going to be comparing some optics to this. So this is, as you can tell by the title and the intro, the Swampfox Tomahawk 1:6. This is a 24mm objective lens, 30mm tube. It's fairly standard for budget LPVOs. The price that I paid for this was at about $250, I want to say. Now, my relationship with Swampfox Optics is nothing. They've commented on one of my videos, and I think they're subscribed to the channel, but they don't really talk to me. I don't really talk to them. I just think they make really good products, so I end up spending my own money and buying their products. So really quickly, let's go through some of the really boring specifications. Now, these are all from their website, so take them with a grain of salt. The weight is listed as a little bit under 21 ounces. And it's a little bit over 10 inches long. It's not the smallest or lightest LPVO in this price point or category, but it's also not super heavy, not super big. So it does take up a little more space than some of your other LPVOs. I have a small one right here. This is Primary Arms Aurora. This one here is about almost an inch shorter. Fairly standard. There are smaller, there are larger optics in its price category. It is a 30mm tube, 24mm objective lens, magnification range of 1 to 6, hard coat anodized, and other than that, that's pretty much the boring specifications. In terms of testing, if you watched last week's video on the budget 308 upper, this optic was on that rifle the entire time, so I think there's 400 to 500 rounds of 308 with a muzzle brake through this optic. I also did the double drop test on this optic with the 308, not the lighter 12.5 inch 5.56 that I shot the intro with. On top of that, of course, as you see it in the intro, we then put several hundred rounds of 5.56 through it. Didn't have any issues with it. It took the 308 with a muzzle brake just fine. And of course, they have their lifetime warranty. They call it their 50,000 round warranty, which is really, if you watch their video, it's basically the same thing as a lifetime warranty. It's fully transferable. So even if something did go wrong with the optic, they would of course replace or refund it for you. So the round count on this optic right now is 800 rounds, somewhere in that range. So not a whole ton of rounds. I have had it for a couple months. I do a lot of dry firing with all of my optics. I do about 30 minutes every day of dry firing with rifle and with pistol. And so I rotate different things in there, and this is one of those optics that I've used quite a bit, and we'll talk about later why that is. So in terms of durability, in terms of how it has held up, even through the drop test, everything has been exceptional on it, and even through the drop test, there's really almost no markings on it whatsoever. Now, if you've watched some of my earlier videos, I also did a review on their 1 to 10, their Arrowhead, which their Arrowhead is more of an upgraded line of scopes. It has some nicer features, a little bit more professional features on it, and it definitely has a higher price tag as well. I think the 1 to 8 is like a little bit under $400, and the 1 to 10 is like $450, $475, depending on where you get it from. So let's go ahead and talk about what are some of the features that separate this. So this is a 1 to 6, as I mentioned. It does have exposed turrets, as you'll see. These are an MOA. They are 1/2 MOA per turn, which I know some people will say that's not very precise. That's not precise enough for them. In my opinion, that's kind of BS, especially for a 1 to 6. If you are off by a quarter MOA, or you miss your target by a quarter MOA because of course your clicks weren't precise enough, it's probably not an issue with the optic. It's more likely an issue with you. But in terms of function, they actually work really, really well. So I had to zero this multiple times because of course I had it on multiple different guns. And so if I took my first shot and I was 2.5 inches low, I would simply have to dial up 5 MOA and bam, I'm dead on. So in terms of tracking, I didn't do a round robin test, which I do on some of my other optics, but when I had to zero it, when I had to do different shots with it, adjusting it was incredibly easy and I didn't have any issue dialing it back to zero, resetting the turrets because of course they are also resettable, and they never really bumped on me. Even when I did the drop test, they did not move from their original position. Now how they feel is a little bit of a different story. They do feel like budget optic turrets. They're very mushy, they're not super tactile. They are pretty loud though, so you can definitely hear and you can definitely feel it. The knurling on the turrets themselves is really good. The only thing I would say about them is that they are very, very mushy and not crunchy or crisp like some really nice turrets are. Specifically the arrowhead turrets, which one, they're locked, so you actually have to lift to unlock, twist, and then lock back down, which makes them much more high quality, much more secure in my opinion. On top of that, the clicks were also better. So these, while they're precise and they work just fine, they're not secured, they're not locked down, and they are very, very mushy. So again, this is about $100 to $200 cheaper than the Arrowhead line though, so for the money, still really, really good. Although I do prefer 1:6s with capped turrets, which we'll talk about a couple different optics in a minute. Now, let's talk about why this is one of the best optics, best 1:6s for around the $300 price range for close-up shooting. And that has to do with a couple things. The first thing I would say is the reticle design. The reticle that I went with for this optic is, I believe, what they call their cross MOA reticle. So everything is delineated into 2 MOA hash marks, so it's very easy to, one, estimate your targets if you're used to using MOA for estimation, and it's also very easy if you know you need to raise 6 MOA at 400 yards, you can very easily just go to 4.6 and you're on at 400 yards. So one, I like MOA because that's what I use, that's what I prefer. It makes it very fast, for instance, and I can tailor it to different guns. So whether I'm using a 308, whether I'm using a short-barreled 5.56 or a long 5.56, I can make my shots at different ranges because I generally have a good understanding of what MOA I need to use out to about 500 yards with most of my guns. So it makes it very, very easy for me, especially when they're delineated into 2 MOA hash marks, which means that I can be at whatever I need to be at. And I don't have to do any dialing. So even though I do have exposed turrets, I never really use them other than for zeroing or for setting different zero distances. Now on top of the MOA system that's in the scope, you also have a 2/3 horseshoe design with some hash marks in it, so it's broken up a little bit, and it is very, very hot. Now, the reason that I went with the cross MOA versus the BDC reticle is that the BDC reticle is fully illuminated, which for most people is probably fine. However, I don't do any night shooting or dusk shooting beyond like 300 yards, so I don't really need the BDC to be illuminated at night for me. So I prefer to have less illuminated and to have it hotter, which is exactly what this optic does. So the brightness modifications go from 1 to 11. And on 11, it is the brightest budget LPVO reticle I have used to date, and that's about 10 different optics at this point. So on 11, it is fire hot. If you notice in the intro to this video, when we're shooting close range into the berm, we're actually shooting into the sun at about 4 or 5 o'clock, and it's wintertime here, of course. So even in direct sunlight coming directly at you, I can still pick up my reticle and use it very, very quick. Because of course, when looking through it, you have that 2/3 kind of horseshoe looking thing with some hash marks taken out of it. And then you have the center cross, of course, the 2 MOA or 4 MOA by 4 MOA cross that's in the center of that is your precise point of aim. So you can use the really hot horseshoe as kind of your reference point, and then if you need to take more precise like headshots or 30, 40 yards on a smaller target, you can use that using the cross, which is really, really hot. Now, one thing that I will mention is that I am somewhat forgetful sometimes, so I actually left this on 11 for 2.5 days straight, and normally optics generally have like anywhere from like a 20-hour to a 200-hour runtime, and on 11, even after being on for 2.5 2.5 days, it is still working at this point in time. Now let's go ahead and talk about the field of view, the eye relief, and the eye box, because of course those are all very important things to talk about when talking about an LPVO. So first off, the field of view is 108 feet at 100 yards, and it feels like that. It feels comparable to a lot of other optics on the market. Now, in my opinion, anything over 100 is good, anything over 110 is excellent. So it's on that bridge of being very good, though not quite excellent. It is on par with the primary arms 1:6, which I believe also has like 108 or 110 feet, so just right around the same area. But not quite as good as the Vortex Strike Eagle Gen 2, which has 117 feet of view at 100 yards, which is very, very good. It's one of the best optics for that. So the field of view on it is still very, very good. And again, it has that bright, hot reticle, which I really, really like. So it is good, though not quite excellent. Now, something that I will knock it on a little bit is actually eyebox. The eye relief is fine. It's anywhere from 3.5 to 3.8 inches, depending on where you are. I can get a good sight picture from here and out, and of course a little bit closer as well. So on 1X, it's very, very forgiving. On 6X, it does tighten up, as you would expect, and you get still maybe a couple inches, 2.5 inches or so of movement forward and backwards where you can get a decent sight picture, though not perfect. But I want to say that the left and right, especially, it's noticeable when compared to other LPVOs. If you haven't shot a lot of different LPVOs like I have, then you might not notice it as much. But the 1X is a little bit tighter. You maybe have, in the proper head placement, you maybe have like a 1/2 inch left, right, up and down that you can move before your eye box goes completely black. So I have it, I see everything. If I just shift my head just that much, I don't know if you can see it. So full picture, gone. Full picture, gone. Full picture, gone. That's all you have left, right, up and down to get that perfect sight picture. So what that means is when I was shooting this, one, if I wanted to be fast with it, I needed to bring it up to the exact same spot every time, which again, I'm a pretty consistent shooter, not an amazingly consistent shooter, but a pretty consistent shooter. So it's not hard to get over. And of course, there are other things that make it really good shooting at close range. But every now and again, if you draw it up and your head's just left, right, up, or down in a weird area, you're not able to see your target whatsoever. So just keep that in mind, that versus some other scopes in its price category, it does have a little bit tighter of an eye box. The best eye box in the price category is the Strike Eagle Gen 2, which has an excellent eye box. But just keep that in mind that this one here is a little bit tighter than some of the other optics in its price point. Now moving back from the turrets and the illumination, let's go ahead and talk about the magnification ring. So it does not have a built-in throw lever, which in my opinion is actually kind of nice, and I kind of prefer it in some ways. We'll talk about that in just a second. But the magnification ring itself, it's a 180-degree throw, and it is incredibly smooth. It basically takes almost no force whatsoever to move it. Now it's not going to move while shooting, under recoil or anything like that, but it is very, very smooth and takes very little force to adjust it from 1 to 6, which means that it's very, very fast. Now, when you buy this optic, it comes with a throw lever that you simply hook over the top, lock it in place, and then tighten it down. What that means is you can adjust that throw lever to be wherever you want it. So for me, on 1X, I have it just far enough over so that it's not completely on the opposite side of the optic, so that it makes it easier if I need to switch it for whatever reason for my left hand to come up and grab it and then throw it to a higher magnification. So instead of having it at a perfect 180 and then having to reach all the way around the optic to flip it, I have it just a little bit over there so you can kind of see it's not quite at 180 degrees. It's maybe at like a 45-degree angle off of that, so it makes it much easier to throw to a higher magnification when on the move, so I don't have to reach my support hand all the way over and flip it over. On top of that, the throw lever that is included, it's made out of aluminum. It's very, very high quality. It has a very secure fit, and it's also very pronounced, making those quick magnification adjustments very, very easy. It's actually the best magnification adjustment in its price point. Maybe in second place is on the Vortex Strike Eagle 1:6 with the BDC3 reticle or whatever they call it. This is a built-in one that you throw in place. It's a little shorter and it is perfectly flat on the side, so you do have to reach your hand all the way over to then rotate it. This one here has a little more force and it is smooth, but it's not quite as smooth as the other one. And then we have the primary arms, which has a tiny little nub on it, which is not, of course, a very good throw lever. Now, the one thing nice about this is it does have a shorter than 180 degree throw, which is why I do have this at 180 degrees, because you don't have to throw it all that far. And it's also the stiffest and the least smooth. So this one here is actually the worst. I have a universal throw lever on there right now, because I do like to have a little bit of a longer throw lever. So the Swampfox Magnification Ring and the throw lever that is included is awesome. It's really, really nice, especially again for a sub $300 optic most places. So as most of you guys know, basically every optic that I test gets dropped. So this one here was mounted on my 16-inch 308, the one that I got from Delta Team Tactical. Incidentally, I also bought this optic from Delta Team Tactical, and you can actually get 5% off of it using my code, which is linked in the description. I don't get any money from that. That's just 5% off for you guys. So I did a double drop test on this, one on the top of the optic, of course, while it's mounted to a rifle, and then one on the side. I do that to check to see if anything breaks. Specifically, something that has exposed turrets, where they're a little bit more fragile than something that's capped, that has that shroud on it that's protecting it. And of course, also the magnification ring, especially if it has a throw lever on it, that can create some interesting torque scenarios. So if you have your throw lever like this and it hits a rock, does it do anything to your magnification ring? Which I have had happen to other scopes, which is a little bit of a precursor for another video that will be coming soon. But it passed with flying colors. Now, I also do it to see if there is any shift in zero. Now, the mount that this is on is a AIM Sports. Now, I know it's a pretty low quality mount, but the reason I bought it was because this is actually a 175 mount. So if you look at it, it's actually a 1/4 inch taller than your standard height mounts, which means that this was very, very easy to run fast because you do not have to scrunch your head down at all. So once you're on the optic, you are pretty much good to go. That looks pretty rough. Optic's not broken. Magnification ring's good. Just close those guys up. And then one on the side, again, about 5 feet. Rough. Now still tight on there. Oh, actually that one there loosened up a little bit. We might have an issue with zero because that mount actually loosened up a tiny bit, so. Now that being said, after the second drop, I noticed that the mount had actually come a little bit loose. So I went ahead, tightened it down, and I did 3 shots before the drops, and then I dropped it twice, and then I did 3 more shots, and the point of impact did shift about 2.5 to 3 MOA, which again, the mount came loose, so I'm not sure how much to attribute that to the optic or how much to the mount. So, but that is to say that the shift in zero of the optic was somewhere between 0 MOA and 3 MOA. All of that I feel is perfectly acceptable. I've demonstrated that in an earlier video. Even if you do shift 2 to 3 MOA, it's not going to move you off of targets, especially man-sized targets as out to 300 yards. So depending on your point of view, in my opinion, that's really, really good because of course I don't know how much of that was the mount and how much was the optic. So somewhere between 0 and 3 MOA, and of course your mileage will vary depending on what mount, what gun, and all that sort of other fun stuff that you're dealing with. So to kind of sum it up towards the end here, it has a lot of really nice features and it functions very, very well. It's very durable, it's very reliable, it's very clear. Something that I didn't mention is the glass. The glass is as good as any other optic. It really is almost identical to the Strike Eagle Gen 2 and the primary arms 1 to 6. Why? Because they're all made in the exact same place. They're all made in China and they're probably all made from the exact same glass manufacturer. Now that does not mean that they're arranged the same way, that the coatings are the same, but pretty much everything else is very, very similar. So the glass quality between the Swampfox, the primary arms, and the Strike Eagle is all nearly identical. I would say it's very good, but again, it's nothing special in its price point. So there are a couple things on this optic that I personally don't care for. For instance, as I mentioned a couple times, I prefer capped turrets onto 1 to 6, especially when I have an MOA reticle where I don't even need to do any guesswork with a BDC. If I know my bolt that I'm using, I know my rifle that I'm using, I know my drop already. So I don't need exposed turrets again, because once I have it zeroed, I'm not really going to be doing much dialing at all. And they are a little bit more fragile. They are a little bigger, a little heavier, and you know, there is that possibility that either I could adjust them and not realize it, or somebody else could adjust them and not realize it. And if they're capped, then of course you just don't have that issue at all, because of course you have to go through a lot more steps to actually be able to adjust it than just, you know, oh, I accidentally touched part of my equipment and now it's 4 MOA off or something like that. In terms of size and weight, it's basically identical to the Strike Eagle Gen 2 1:6, but it's a little bit bigger than the primary arms, about a ½ inch to an inch taller than the primary arms. So it falls in a pretty much perfect category, and it's very, very competitive. It's a little bit under $300, just like most other 1:6s. You can find them for around the $270 on a good deal to about $300 on a fairly standard deal. So all that is to say, if you're looking for an optic that has this feature set, if you do more target shooting and you really like exposed turrets, because they do make more precise adjustments better and a little bit easier than having cap turrets and having to use an MOA and do holdovers and stuff like that. So if it has those features and those things that you like and you're looking for an optic between $250 and $300, it is a really, really good option, though again, not for everyone, just like all optics aren't for everyone. So it is really good. The durability is there, the glass quality is there, the reticle is extremely bright. It is the brightest reticle that I've tested on an LPVO. Now it is the red version, not the green version. I believe the green version is a little bit brighter, but the battery life is also a little bit worse. So to sum it up, this is a very, very good optic that has some features that I don't particularly care for and some things that really make it stand out amongst some of its competitors. So it depends on what you want, but it is an excellent optic. So that's pretty much it for the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Like I said in the beginning, if you want to check out my steel targets, they are linked in the first link in the description, and they are all 30% off through Black Friday, maybe to the end of November, not really sure, or until they're sold out, of course. We do have more targets and more designs coming, like I mentioned, but those should be here anywhere from like 2 to 4 weeks, so we're kind of waiting on the end designs and price quotes and all sorts of fun stuff. So that's pretty much it for the video, guys. Thank you once again for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace off.